This is Gail Germanson, and I am interviewing John and Mary Fisher as part of the Bayview Historical Society's 40th Anniversary Oral History Project. It is currently April 29th, 2019, in the morning, and we are conducting the interview at Bayview and the Bayview Terrace. Um, okay. If other people are present, yes, they are. John Sargent is present, and Brad is present,
Caleb
and
Westfall.
present. Okay. Uh, the interviewee has agreed to participate and contribute today's recording to the Bayview Historical Society's archival collection so that it may be preserved and available for future use as indicated on the deed of gift form reviewed and signed by the Fishers. Please be assured that we understand that your participation is fully voluntary and that we can take a break, postpone, or terminate the interview at any time at your request. We have a list of questions to help get the discussion started, but you are welcome to decline answering any of these if you don't want to answer, and answer others as you see fit. We have some specific topics that we want to cover, but mostly we want to hear what you have to say about your experiences in Bayview. We have set aside 1 hour for this interview with the understanding that it may run slightly shorter or longer. We thank you for your time and willingness to share your stories with us today. And with that, we will get started. Now, can you please state your name, where and when you were born, and where you currently live?
My name is Mary Ann Newman, was my maiden name. Fisher. We lived on Wentworth. I was born there February 6, 1948, and was there most of my life because we even lived in the home after we were married. Except for like 3 years that we were in Illinois, that was home, and it will always be home, even though we've had to sell it now. We're now currently living in the Bayview Towers, much less work. And, we're getting older. We don't want to shovel snow anymore.
And I'm John Fisher. I was born in Seattle, Washington. My father was in the weather service, so we moved quite a bit. We came to Wisconsin when I was 3, lived in Union Grove for a year, then moved to Oak Creek. And in 1962, the expressway took our home, so I moved into Bayview and have been lived on Oklahoma, just east of KK. And we bought a place on Lenox and Conway. We lived there for a while, then we bought a place and lived on Wentworth and Oklahoma, and then moved into her parents' house, and that was on Wentworth also, and lived there until about a year ago, and now we're living in the Bayview Terrace.
And did you go to school here?
I sure did. The old Immaculate Conception for grade school. I went to Bayview High School, Milwaukee Area Technical College after that, and then worked. While I was at Bayview, my father was a teacher. He taught at Tech for 15 years, and then he came to Bayview. I was a senior when he came to Bayview. I called him Dad. Why not? Everybody knew he was my father, so we kept that relationship. And then my brothers, I was the oldest of 10. 2 of us, the 2 girls went to Bayview. Then I had 4 brothers that went to Tech. A sister, then my 3 sisters that went to St. Mary's Academy before they deemed it that they had to close it. And then another brother that went to Tech. But Bayview was always home, always came back home. So it was a big, big, big part of my life.
What did your dad teach?
He taught sophomore English.
English.
But he was also a photographer, and he had the photography club, But he was also kind of he did a lot of picture taking in Bayview, and there's been a lot of pictures that my sister has put on Bayview Vintage of his work. And, you know, he also did weddings. I mean, teachers at that time got paid once a month, and some months were 5 weekends. So, you know, you had to sometimes supplement that income, especially when you had a large family. So,
When did he teach at Bayview? What years?
65 until 15 years, and that was when he had his accident. He was going to retire the next year, but he had the accident that left him paralyzed. So he still managed to get around Bayview, though.
He was quite loved at Bayview.
Mhm.
'Cause I was at Bayview for over 30 years, and they still talked about
You either
your
loved
dad.
him or hated the man. You know? But he was, like my husband in his job, was fair. Was fair.
How about you,
Well,
John?
when I moved here in the middle of a school year, we tried to get into IC because according to the boundaries, we were in IC territory. But they were full, so I went to Sacred Heart. And I spent the last year and a half at Sacred Heart and graduated from there. And went on to Marquette High School and Marquette University. And I even taught at Bayview because I was a substitute teacher. You know, before I got a permanent job. And so I taught at Bayview with her father. You know, don't ask me what classes I had because they had all different kinds, from girls PE to English to history to, you know, whatever they needed a sub for. But I did that for about 2 years before I got a permanent job. And remember Bayview, you know, in that regard. I went to Bayview to get my driver's education. So that was the only time I took a class at Bayview. So.
What other ties do you have to the neighborhood, like your family or your work or clubs or organizations, historical society?
Yeah. Where should we start?
Well, we're founding members of the Historical Society, or charter members, or whatever you want to call that. You know, we're living here at the time. Her parents also were very active. Her mother was in politics, and you know, so she kept us abreast with everything, and so we were very much involved with them in those
Who
things.
did you work with at the beginning of the Historical Society? Paul Colbeck and
I was on the newsletter. I wrote a number of stories and articles in the newsletter. So I know and I was working for the post office at that time. So I had a kind of an interest in the old post office, which you know, I found out to be very, you know, fascinating.
On Smith?
No,
Smith.
even before Smith, because the station K, I believe it was on KK and Ward, and that's where it started, you know, and then moved into Smith, you know, later on. And I know I interviewed a gentleman, I wish I could remember his name, it's Ben something, but he had the last rural route in the city before it became a city route. And it's you know, a unique concept. Rural routes are judged you know, once a year, and that's how it's created. And after that, it's up to the mailman to do whatever he wants to do. You know, it's kind of like he's on his own. Where a city route is gauged daily, you know, by what's there and how to deliver it and so on and so forth. But he had a route that he would take the bus to Howard and Howell, where the bus ended, and that's where his route started. And he had everything from Pine Street to 6th Street, from Howard to Layton. It was a huge space, but at that time there were farms too. So it wasn't populated like it was now. It was more walking than anything.
What year would that be?
Oh, I'd have to go back to
I
the
mean,
article.
approximately.
I would say back in the 40s and early 50s. And when I interviewed him, probably 40 years ago, he was in his 90s. So, but I say the last carrier that did that. And so it was fascinating, and just to learn that, being a postal worker and a former carrier, that the things that he was telling me how they did things. And
So he could choose his route or plan his own route? Is that what you're saying?
well, basically, rural routes are, once they're determined, then they do it as slow or fast as they want to. You know,
Or they did.
and you know, they adapt for the rural routes now are basically all country things. So, but if he can't deliver the mail because the snow is plowed or not plowed, then he skips it and delivers it the next day. He doesn't get any what do you want to call it,
Flat.
flack for that, you know. And if he comes at 10 o'clock or he comes at 2 o'clock, it doesn't really matter as long as he gets the mail delivered. You know, so it's just it's a little different philosophy than in the city where you have, you know, a set route that's, you know, pretty much, you know, at 10 o'clock you're here and 11 o'clock you're there and 2 o'clock you're there, and you know, so, but a lot more leeway in the rural, you know, segments.
And when we were growing up in Bayview, your church was pretty much your social center. And, you know, he was at Sacred Heart with his family. I was at IC with my family. And, I mean, it was Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
CYO.
CYO. Don't get him started on CYO. You know, it was like every weekend you could go to 2 or 3 dances, you know. It's like, and have a good time. And really, you know, and they were packed. They were packed. And, you know, and it was the local bands, you know, I mean, you really knew the people that were playing. And some of them made it, most of them didn't, but, you know,
Real people too,
Yeah.
not records.
yeah, real people. It was,
Yeah.
you know, so there was plenty for the kids to do.
Yeah.
You know,
High school.
it
You know,
was-
eighth graders even, you know, they were invited. And, you know, it was amazing how many of those were around the whole city, you know, but Bayview, every parish, they rotated. You know, Sacred Heart had one week, the next week might have been IC, and then St. Augie's, and then St. Veronica's, and St. Paul's, you know, so every, you could stay in the neighborhood, you didn't have to go out to, you know, 54th and, you know, Forest Home or something like this, just to, unless you wanted to see a band, you know. But,
So what kind of bands were just high school, like rock and roll
cover
stuff?
bands.
cover
Cover
bands,
bands.
you know, that was the time of the start of the Beatles,
Sure.
you know,
Oh.
and, you know, so
63, yeah, right.
they covered those things, and you know, so the best ones were the ones that, you know, everyone wanted to see and to hear and to dance to, you know. 'Cause
Sock
those-
hops too.
Yeah.
Remember sock hops?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Those tend to be, sock hops that I know of were always at the high schools, you know, but the CYOs had, you know, dance.
More
and
organized.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but, you know, there was, you know, our parents were real active in their churches, and, you know, so there was always some breakfast to go to on Sunday after Mass, and
Oh, yeah.
you
Holy,
liked seeing everybody.
Yeah.
It was fun to see everybody,
well, I learned how to drink coffee by
working the fish
working at
fries.
the Sacred Heart's Fish Fries, and my job was the dishwasher. so I would collect dishes and go back, and
Is
they
that why you don't do them
had a
now?
big dishwasher that I would fill up and wash all the dishes. And by the time I got done, the only thing they had left was this coffee that was
The mud.
been cooking for at least 5 or 6 hours in these
Mm-hmm.
big urns, and so I learned to put lots of sugar in my coffees.
Mm-hmm.
Was that still in the old church hall? That
Yes.
old
That was
building
in the old
with the
church hall.
cemetery and
Yep, that's when it was in the basement there
Mhm.
with the gym above it,
hmm
and of course that's where we played CYO basketball and had our meetings and dances, and so it was a very, very used building, you know. So yes.
But then besides the churches, the playgrounds all had so much for the kids to do all summer. Because you could be outside, but you just had to be home when the lights came on. And you were safe. I mean, sure, there was the occasional something that happened, but not like now.
And they had the public school playgrounds had organized activities at each playground, but they also had inter-playground activities. For instance, they had, and I remember moving here and not believing this, but they had softball leagues, but the softball leagues had not what we consider softballs now, but they were 10-inch softballs, which you didn't use gloves for because you couldn't, it wouldn't
Wow.
fit in the gloves. But then they had, you know, a league, so you would go to, you know, from Fernwood to Tippecanoe to Linus Field, you know, all of the other, you know, branches.
California
Dover.
Field, it wasn't Cy John then, it
Yeah.
was California.
But you know, Dover all had teams.
Were you on one of these teams? Or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I was in 8th grade.
Eighth
Hey,
grade.
if your mom could find something for you to do and be out
Yeah.
from underfoot, you were gone.
Yeah,
you
it was
know.
the playgrounds were a great place to be. You could sit there and play chess or checkers, but then we liked it because all of the big time, you know, high school basketball players would come and have basketball games, and you could watch these guys up close, you know, and you might even get lucky and play with them or something, you know. So that was always a neat thing to do. But
But
it was-
even winter, oh, I'm sorry.
No.
You know, I mean, they kept you busy in the summer. Now we have Humboldt Park and we have South, I don't even think we have South Shore anymore. It's just Humboldt Park. But all the playgrounds were frozen for ice skating. You know, so you could go skating. You had to go home for dinner. You know, these playgrounds would close at dinner time, so you went home for dinner, but everybody was back by 6 o'clock. You know, and so there was stuff to keep you busy and keep you off the streets,
Yeah.
you know.
Humboldt Park ice skating was probably such a dramatic draw of people, of kids, you know, and we skated that whole pond, you know, or we'd go to Kosciuszko, you know, and you know, sneak over there,
Mm.
you know.
Did you do crack the whip?
We did. Ice skating, cracked the
Let's
whip,
move
yeah.
Well, that was lovely because I remember all this stuff too, and it was like a trip down memory lane. Do you have any memories or stories about the rolling mill? Probably not. You guys are too young.
Well,
Yeah,
the only
just-
memory I have about the rolling mill is keeping me up all night, because I was a block away, or a long block, but it was basically, you know, pretty close, and you could hear it all night long. You know, boom, 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 boom. You know, but it's like the airplanes here. You
You
get
get used
accustomed
to
to it after a while.
Yeah.
But you know, I never had any contact. Otherwise, you know, walking by it on our way to Humboldt Park or something like that, because we walked.
The rolling mill. You're talking about
Oh,
the one on
the
Oklahoma.
drop. Okay, I'm sorry.
was
I'm
gonna
talking about the
say.
drop forge.
Drop
Oh,
forge.
yeah,
That
I'm
was
sorry.
the
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the rolling mill. I
You're
never
too
know.
young.
Yeah, we're too.
It was gone.
You're
Oh my
just
God, I'm
kids.
70 and I'm too
We
young
we
for
only
something.
remember the train, the engine,
It's Old Smoky.
Old Smoky.
Old Smoky.
That was about all that was left when I was around. You know, and of course. they
Across from
moved-
D. Marini's.
Yeah.
Oh,
What
okay.
is DeMarini's now? You know, but
There was a train
it
engine
was
there.
a.
Oh,
You didn't know that?
no.
Oh,
Oh,
It's
it,
like-
it was.
and it
the
wasn't
last-
fenced in. You could play on it, and it was this big.
Old steam
Like-
locomotive.
Yeah, it was the last steam engine that worked the Milwaukee Road.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's still in existence. It's down
In Illinois someplace?
Either that or
East
East Troy
Troy,
or somewhere,
But they
in a
moved it.
museum, a train museum.
Little Italy? You're
No.
probably not.
No, my mother and dad, we used to go down to the Third Ward, Little Italy, and see the Pink Church of Pompeii and go for a couple masses, and they'd have a festival down there, so, but that was it.
But see, what I learned or didn't know at the time, that this was a Little Italy here. in
Yeah,
Bay
oh,
View.
That's
yeah.
what I'm talking
I
about.
mean, we're talking,
Mhm.
Groppies being the center of things, and I know I hear stories about when she was young going to Groppies, and because her father only got paid once a month, they had a book. So if she came and got a gallon of milk and some bread or whatever, they would write it down, and then once a month, her mom would or dad would go in and pay the
My-
bill for the month.
A lot of people, you just signed and you paid when you could. And that was until I was, past high school, so.
Yes. It was amazing that they did things like that, because that's, personal credit. I mean, they were, on the hook
You didn't have
for
to give them a
everything.
social security number either.
You know.
Just,
Is that the place where you did most of your grocery shopping then, or?
as us kids got out of the house and money was a little easier, at first it was A&P, where that BMO is,
Okay.
and then Kohl's, because, Gruppy's was even a little more expensive at that time
Mm-hmm.
than, if you're feeding a family of, 12, 13 people, Luckily, I had an uncle that was a butcher on State Street, and so we,
And her father worked in the, was it, extra job was cleaned up. There was a fruit
Patty
store
Brothers.
at the Patty
Remember
Brothers.
Patty Brothers?
On KK, right across from Immaculate Conception, there was a fruit store.
Oh, okay.
There was also a bakery right next to it too, that left.
I close my eyes, I can still smell Patty Brothers.
Oh.
You'd walk in there, you could smell all the vegetables and
Yeah.
fruits and stuff, right?
Oh, my dad scrubbed the floor there every Saturday night and waxed it. And he could take home all the stuff that they weren't going to be able to sell on Monday. So I was used to, I thought you got a whole melon, and a whole grapefruit for breakfast, because that's the way my mother would serve it.
Yeah.
And bananas had brown marks. Didn't they all come that way? We were married before I realized learned how to buy fruit and vegetables. Yeah.
Okay, Bayview High School, we kind of covered
Yeah.
Bayview High School, unless there's something else you want to add.
No, just my mother always thought I should move a cot up there because I spent more time at school than I did at home, because I was in the band, I was in the orchestra, I was on the newspaper. I was gone from home at 7 in the morning and got home probably around 6 or 7 at night. But your friends were there, and it was fun to be with everybody. So
What instruments did you play?
our family was before sports really took over, and so we all had to play piano first, and I played violin, trumpet, French horn, clarinet. My mother would send us to Steuben for summer school for music lessons because it was $6 for the summer, and you would just switch classes, because then she would pick us up, and so you got to take 3 or 4 music lessons every morning, and so we would just exchange instruments and learn different instruments. So we did a lot of, and so then that also meant when we were home in the summer, we took dancing lessons and acrobatic lessons or whatever they had at Dancing Hansing School of Dance. And, and would do the parks for the 4th of July. And, that thought came back to me of, when I see Janet Litke, it's like, oh, that's right. I was born on a farm down in Iowa. And Rosie said, my sister next to me, she said, I guess I wasn't a dancer. They always made me play the piano for you. But,
Yeah, Dancing Hanson, so that was the place.
Janice was our first interview.
Oh, really?
The lake is such a big part of Bayview. Were you ever involved in any activities on the lake? fishing or
Well,
boating?
Where do we start?
yeah.
That's why we bought this condo, because I wanted to stay on my lake, you know. It's
Yeah,
so
they-
neat.
What was surprising, when I first moved here, you know, I was in 7th grade going into 8th, and I found out that Oklahoma Beach was a big gathering spot for kids. And there was
So you
South Shore
became one
Beach.
of them?
Mhm.
Huh?
You became one of them?
I became one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was where all the kids hung out. And because it was kind of, there was a lifeguard there, but that's about it. And so there was, you know, more fun. You could do some things that were probably not supposed to be done, you know, building snow forts or, you know, digging down under this tide or, you know, things like that. And they had the two big jetties that were still there from God knows when. But so we lived down there, and then went to South Shore Park for the frolics. I mean, I was amazed
It wa-
at the frolics.
I was born the year the frolics, the water frolics
Yes.
started.
Oh,
And that was,
and to see some of the things that the water frolics did, you know, with the boats and the skiers and things like that, and you know, had the orchestra. They had the
Alan
big stage,
Bradley
the Alan
Band.
Bradley Orchestra there, and
My father-in-law was the MC for that, for the Alan Bradley
oh,
Band.
nice.
that was amazing. You know, it wasn't really into that kind of music, but it was still amazing. And to sit on a hill, you know, we sat on the hill and just that was the place to be.
That's so funny because I used to watch that and never realize that someday this man would be my father-in-law, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you were right. We weren't into that music at all. It was kind of like, it's a little
Yeah.
boring, but
We
still.
were out of the house, we were with friends of ours, you were having a good time. Now, the thing that I didn't particularly fish, but our neighbors did schmelting.
Mm.
And so he would take us down, you know, and if it was a good night, we had schmelt for breakfast. And the runs used to be pretty good, and so we spent a lot of time down there schmelting. And
She just looked, you know, she didn't pull the rope up.
oh
at all.
yeah, I pulled the rope up. I just didn't eat the schmelz.
That would be this time of year too,
You're
right?
right.
Yes.
Because you
Cold
do that at
and
night though,
rainy.
right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
what
at
you
night.
say?
Yeah.
I think that was part of the charm.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
You know.
It was at night.
Yeah, it was cold and rainy just this time of year.
Yeah.
Around Easter and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was down
spring.
just north of what is now where the sub was, because at that time the sub was there,
Mm.
you know, and you know, now the Coast Guard station is there, and,
Okay.
but that's where the I don't even know what they call them. They were kind of like piers that you could, you know, set your you know, what are they-
big nets.
your big nets that you'd lower into the lake, and you know, so
The landmark on KK, if they get schmelt from some of the fishermen, they'll have that on their special board.
Always have smelt at the landmark.
Yeah,
Right? There's always a big chalkboard. Where do they get their smelt from?
I bet you some of the guys that frequent there bring them
Could be.
schmelt, you know.
or they could get it. I think they still have schmelt at the fish market on where is
The
that?
public market.
Not the public market, the one out in Elm Grove,
Mm.
that fish market.
Empire Fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Now, our kids, you know, because we live so close, got involved in sailing down at the yacht club.
yeah.
And it was the best thing we ever did. I mean, we knew where they were.
The hawk just went by.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's a falcon. It's not, yeah. It sits on the ledge. As a matter of fact, the elevators has.
I saw the picture.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, he
It's a-
just flew by.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It's a-
Perfect.
amazing what we see flying by.
But yeah, our kids did sailing, and now I know my daughter and her husband have just purchased a sailboat because this yacht club is very friendly, you know, and just down to earth,
Mhm.
and but it's,
Yeah.
but like I said, my boys, I knew where they were. I always would go by and their bikes were inside, so I knew they were there. And so they learned to crew, and
Our one son who turned in, he became a Marine. He just loved to sail and to crew, and
he'd crew for anybody.
yeah, and of course, he was a swimmer, so he didn't have any fear of the water at all. And matter of fact, we were involved in this off the record, but we were involved in the Ulster Project, which is brings over Northern Ireland teens, both Catholic and Protestant, to try and build relationships with them, and they pair them up with teens and from here, and my son, the one son was, and he says, he suggested, why don't to his captains, why don't you take some of these kids out on the water? And so it started the sailing event, and we would cook hamburgers and hot dogs for them on their way on their back. But ever since then, and that's been quite a while, that we've been
Over 20 years.
sponsoring the Irish kids, and but the captains at the yacht club are just so generous in their time and their boats and stuff, just to take these kids out, because they've never had an experience like that. There in their country, it's the ocean, or nothing. There's no lakes to speak of. So.
And this yacht club is much less expensive than downtown.
No.
Yeah.
Your kid can. My grandson's. This is his third summer that he's going to be taking lessons, and he doesn't love it, but he realizes he's learning something that a lot of kids don't have. Oh, and the other thing is, when we have these Irish teens here, it brought a lot of the children down from Brookfield and Waukesha, and you can't imagine how many of these kids have never been to this side of town or seen the lake.
Mhm.
They were amazed.
Mhm.
I mean, because to them the south side is sometimes, aren't you afraid living there? It's like, no.
My daughter used to get that. You live in the south side. Ooh.
Yeah.
No, we live in Bayview.
Yeah.
Well, not, yeah.
Different.
So, okay, go on. We could talk forever about the frolics.
My daughter may have taken. Do you have anybody in the 44-year-old range? Because my daughter took sailing. I was wondering if they ever.
Our David is 42, but he didn't take sailing. Sometimes being the oldest, he didn't get some of that stuff because we weren't aware of it. But
Okay, we covered the lake,
mhm.
and I think we covered what did you like most about living in Bayview. Unless you have something else you want to add, because I think we've got that.
It was
pretty much.
just the camaraderie and the feeling. Some of that feeling is gone. It's changed. People came here because they wanted that feeling. Well, so many have moved in, and that it's changed a little bit.
And that was the next question.
Oh.
In what ways did Bayview change while you lived here? And we're just going right into that.
It's progress is good. I mean, it was time. For me, it's gone way too much and way too fast. And the dollar is motivating so much of it that it tends to upset me. But if I'm in my condo and I can look at my lake, I'm fine. So.
The people moving in, of course, the younger people, they have different ideas of what they want. They forget that this, and maybe they have, and we just haven't penetrated that society or whatever. Because one of the things that I always liked about Bayview was it was so friendly and open, and you could walk down the street and talk to anybody and never have a problem, And now I don't know if you even see people out, but then again I might be,
Showing your age.
showing my age or something. But that's probably the thing that is most difficult for us now is the change in kind of the atmosphere. I remember I always would refer to Bayview and Milwaukee too as being this very open town that it wasn't like a Chicago or New York or busy, where they're just kind of, who are you, that kind of thing. And we, you would stop and, meet people and talk to people, and they'd give you the time of day, that's what I always enjoyed about, the people in Bayview. And so, of course, it helped too that you knew so many people, too. That makes it a little easier.
Okay, I think we've covered just about every darn thing except for, are you currently or previously involved in the Bayview Historical Society? Well, yes, you were, and you still are.
Yeah.
And you were
On the board. I was on the board.
Yeah, but you were the hospitality
Hospitality.
lady.
Which I just loved.
I know,
just
and you were
loved.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe she might get into it once she gets her legs back, and
Yeah.
that knocked us out for a lot of things.
And she won the chili cook-off.
Yes. Yes, she did.
Yeah, when
She
I was
did.
in the neighborhood society, they
Okay.
had, at the South Shore, they had a chili cook-off, and I was, yeah.
But the funny thing is, you said it was an accident. You didn't realize it was a competition.
Yeah.
And all these restaurants, Lulu's and whatever,
Yeah.
they all contributed, and there was actually voting for the best chili. And she won. All the restaurants in Milwaukee, she won. And you didn't even realize it was a competition at the time.
No.
No,
She
It
just
was.
thought she was bringing
I
chili
just
to
like-
share,
yeah,
Yeah.
to sure, I didn't know.
Yes.
I really didn't care. I mean, it was really nice, and.
It was good chili,
Yeah,
honey.
Thank you.
Good chili.
I guess this is a question unique because there's both of you here and you're married, but I don't think we really talked about like how you guys met or when you got married or anything like that. If you wanted to talk about that at all, it's
Oh, we can.
if you wanted to.
One of her brothers,
He knew my
Was-
brothers before I knew him.
yeah, I mean, I played baseball with them at South Shore Park and football and things like this when I was in, high school, grade school, and they were always the tough guys. So but
Brothers didn't start the fights, but they
one
could
of-
finish any fight.
when I was at Marquette, one of my classmates, they formed a band, and after after I graduated, I tended bar at a place right on campus, and her brother and this friend of mine would come in after their band practices. Well, their band was called Truk.
TRUC.
See,
Okay.
You guys
And-
are too young.
no.
Well,
But-
oh, John.
But anyway, they played. They started a gig at the
Interns.
Interns East, which was on 7th and Michigan, and they happened to play on Mondays and Tuesdays, which were my off days. So I would go down there and listen to the band. I loved to dance, and so the family was there a lot of times. So I got to start dancing with her and asked her out, and that's how it started. So it was
A year later, we got married.
Yeah.
So
And what year was that?
73. We've been married 45 years.
Congrats.
And they said it wouldn't last.
yeah.
Anything else?
You mentioned your son in the Marines. Can you talk a little bit about other family that you might have in the area? Or
Well,
Sure.
right now, the only family that's in town are my daughters.
We have
One-
5 children.
We have 5 children,
Mhm.
and the oldest lives in Evanston, and
Went to Northwestern.
he, so he stayed pretty much there. And my daughters live here. One in Wauwatosa, one in West Dallas. My daughter used to live here before we sold the house, and
She's a special ed teacher at Hamilton,
so she's our,
MPS, and she is a special teacher. She's wonderful.
anybody who can do that, it's got to be
And keep their sanity.
special.
What's her last name?
Fisher.
Oh, it's Fisher.
She's
Yeah.
a Fisher.
Laura.
She's
Laura
been there
Fisher.
10 years, I think, and
Mhm. And
It's-
then going down the line, my son, who was a Marine, he was in for 2 tours, 9 years.
3 years. Oh, but 3
Wait.
deployments.
Yeah, 3 deployments. So he spent a lot of time. He was based out of Okinawa, and spent tours in both Afghanistan,
In Iraq.
Iraq, and once in Kuwait.
Mm.
But he was in motor transport, so he was all over the place. And then he finished up his tour at in San Diego at Miramar, and
He got out because they couldn't keep him busy enough at that time.
well, it was
Yeah.
the war was downside, so they took this level of, he was a sergeant, and they just said, we don't want you, basically, and so we're not going to offer you any incentives to stay in. So he basically, left at that point. But he started in California, or that's where he got out, and then moved to Florida, and he got married there. He's a cement truck driver, so.
Very
and then,
happy.
Yeah, and then my youngest son, who, went to UWM, graduated, got into Irish studies, played rugby, played soccer, and
And at Marquette.
at Market
Marquette
High, and then at UWM, the clubs, went over to Ireland.
To get his master's.
First
We haven't seen him
as a junior, undergrad studies, and then went over there to get his master's, and met a young woman and got married, got his PhD equivalent, and has 2 kids,
And it's coming in 10 days. I can't wait.
but he's very involved in the university there, and
In Ireland?
in Ireland. Yeah, he's lived in
He's in
Ireland
Galway.
since then. Yeah, and
University of Galway.
so they,
They just bought land. He'll never be back.
yeah,
But he married a beautiful girl, a wonderful girl, and a wonderful family. So he's happy. I'm not, but he's very happy.
Yeah.
So that's what you want for your kids. So
yeah. But he's doing well, and very, very happy for him. So that's where our kids are anyway. So yeah, they didn't. They think about Bayview and probably have different views than we do. I know my daughter loved it here, but the one that lived here, she was just very, easy with the neighborhood and things. So yeah.
anything else?
It's
It was so fun because
yeah.
your memories pretty much overlap my
Mine.
memories, and it was very nostalgic for me.
And like I said, I'll probably think of another 10 things after you leave.
Well, then
but
you have to call us.
You'll put it in.
Well, then you remember DeMarini's, the old DeMarini's,
yeah.
and I know
That's where Good Kind is now? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The old one, yeah.
Yes.
yeah, and
The new one is
Best
the Legion.
pizza in the world.
see, and I worked at Francisco's. See, so there was this tug of war. Francisco's, what is now Krabby's on
Okay.
KK and
Oh,
Oklahoma.
sure.
Because I lived across the street, and I got to know him. I started out drinking coffee there, and then ended up, washing dishes and cooking and doing whatever needed. Because I was friends with the owner, and that's kind of where I spent my life. I know the first time I went to DeMarini's was with her and the priest that married us. And I was just, it was just kind of like, okay, you hear about all this stuff, and but we've been.
Our kids thought it was an extension of our dining room, going to DeMarini's, because we went a couple times a week.
That was the classic date in Bayview,
Yeah.
was you would go to the Avalon for a movie and then get pizza at DeMarini's,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
When
Well, then-
movies at Avalon were 50 cents.
50 cents, and I was so young looking, my boyfriend used to get me in for children's
Oh.
under 12. I swear. Cheap days, because
Oh,
I was
yeah.
so little.
Yep.
I remember watching A Hard Day's Night there for like 5 or 6 hours. We just repeated
Keep
one at a
repeating.
time.
Because
Yeah.
everybody went, excuse me, everybody went to the Avalon on Sunday afternoon.
Matinee, the matinee. And you ever sneak through the back door?
No, never.
No, never did that.
Never.
Never did that.
Me either.
Once you learn that trick,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can save that 50 cents for popcorn.
The popcorn there is $5 now.
Oh, wow.
It is good popcorn.
It is wonderful popcorn.
Yeah.
Don't they advertise as the best popcorn?
Yes.
in
It
town?
is. My
that
granddaughter was
true?
the popcorn girl there for a long time when they opened.
Yeah.
See, and our-
$5 over popcorn. It was
And
like,
our kids all worked at the Marinis. You know,
Yeah.
either waiting tables or answering the phone. And
Ooh, funny story. I mean, this is, you that don't have to put in. Our David was the oldest one, and my kids they went to private schools, but they had to pay for their own books and supplies for school. So he became a waiter there. And he was getting a little disgusted. He did good in tips, but at that time the girls had to wear skirts. And he said, you know what, you guys get more tips because you're wearing a skirt. And they said, no, and he said, I'll prove it to you. The next day he went to work in a kilt. And he wore his kilt for about, I don't know how long. He'd wear tennis shoes, the kilt, the jacket, the whole bit. His tips did go up. And everybody got a kick out of that, so you have to know David. I mean, he's having his first baby now at 42, and he's got to grow up. And he's not real happy about that part, but,
Do you have other grandchildren?
We have 3 in Wauwatosa, my one daughters. Tommy in Ireland's got 2, and then David and our son in Florida are each having a baby within the next couple of months.
oh, how exciting.
So then we'll have 7.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why God let me live, because I want to see these kids. So that's good.
yeah.
Yeah. The kids have been the joy. They're my life. They kept me busy when they were growing up, and
Yeah. You can kind of see the whole mob over there.
oh yeah, above the piano.
That was taken at after our daughter's.
No, that was Irish Fest. That's why we all look tired,
Oh.
because we
After Irish
spend
Fest.
all weekend down at Irish
Yeah.
Fest. So okay, well, you could probably keep us talking forever. We'll let you go.
Oh, this was fun.
Yes, it was.
Good, good interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're very
We
welcome.
enjoyed it.
Wait, how do we turn this baby off?
He's probably had it off for a while.
Probably ran out of space.
Yeah.
luckily, you know.